for example, I fell into sexual sin.
Yeah.
Then while I'm in the act, a robber comes in and shot us.
Yes.
And we die. Will
Yes.
we go to heaven?
Yes, if you are born again before then. Yeah, that is one thing that must be corrected as well. Sometimes the way people preach the gospel is, it is the act of sin that takes you to hell. It's not true. What takes you to hell is breaking of relationship. It's a cut in relationship. Listen, Christianity is not the actions. The actions are just the confirmation of who you are. They don't qualify you to be Christians. So what takes you people to hell is the break in relationship, is or loss of relationship with the Father. So that person that sinned, he has not, that sin, one single sin, is not enough for him to lose. He didn't lose the relationship. He's sinning in his body, but he has not turned his back on God. He has not walked away from God. He has not broken the relationship with God. For you to go to hell, you must break your relationship with God. You must turn your back at him. But if you love him, but you just have failure or imperfections or things that you do wrong, you don't go to hell. And the reason why I know that is because you are talking now about somebody who was in sexual immorality.
Yes.
So he was committing adultery or fornication when Jesus comes or when he dies. But he was somebody who had been building a relationship with the Lord all along, loves the Lord. Now, let's take another picture of you, as beautiful as you are. Before you left home today, your mom probably offended you and said something nasty, or your brother or your sister or your dad, and you are angry. Now, in the face and before God, the adultery or fornication and that anger, they are in the same category, sin. Anger is a sin. When you see the list of the people that will not go to the kingdom of God, but there's a list: adulterers and fornicators and anger, all the same. Okay, let's take another. So it is you thinking that is a grave sin because it's sex, and you thinking it's big, but really, maybe in the eyes of God, the sins that of the heart are worse than sins of the flesh. That's why he says that anybody who unites with the prostitute is one with him, because he's sinning against his body. So it is the sin of but let's say you just wait in that anger, nobody sees it. And it might even be more deadly than the physical sin. Okay, let's say another person is sitting down there and he was at work on Monday and somebody offended him so strongly and he couldn't forgive the person. That lack of forgiveness could take the person to hell. Why that sin? If he dies without forgiving, he could go to hell right there. Because the Bible says, if you don't forgive others, I will not forgive you. So that breaks that relationship. More than the sexual sin breaks the relationship. Because it didn't say, if you someone says, I will not forgive you. But if you don't forgive, I will not forgive you. If you don't forgive others. So inner sins of the spirit, sins of the heart, are actually much more dangerous than the things we look at sometimes. But for the basic thing you must know is that Christianity is not about actions. Okay, let me tell you something. There is a difference between Old Testament, not what you do per se, even though what you do could lead you to sin. But sin is your pursuit, where your heart is. If your heart, that is what the Beatitude is all about. It says, for example, even though you have not slept, in the Old Testament, for you to sin, you must sleep with the lady. But Jesus said, even though you have not slept with her, but your heart is being attached to her. You have, been drawn away from the Lord. So where the direction of your heart, where your heart is being attached to, is what determines whether you are sinning or not in the New Testament. So in the New Testament, that is a sin already that you just lost after a lady because your heart is going away from the Lord after the person. So it's a relationship thing. Even though you didn't sin, you didn't touch her, or you didn't, kiss her, or you didn't touch her, it's still a sin. So the action has not taken place, but sin has actually been committed. For example, Jesus said, if any one of you that hates his brother and sister is a murderer. In the Old Testament, you need to actually murder. The action has to take place before you are a murderer. But in the New Testament, I didn't touch anybody, how can I be a murderer? Well, in the New Testament, it's not necessarily action. That is a sin. It could be a sin, but it's not necessarily a sin. For example, in the New Testament, Jesus and his disciples went and plucked corn and wheat. And Jesus and people were saying, what are you doing? This is against our law. Don't do anything on Saturday or something. Jesus said, they have not sinned. Jesus justified the people and said, because they have a need. Don't you remember when David went to the temple and took what didn't belong to him, what belonged to the priest? There was a violation there. The action could be qualified as sin, but Jesus said no. Because it is not all, it is about the heart. God is looking at the heart. We serve a God that is more than actions. God is looking at the heart. So he said, even though David did it, and according to law, he was supposed to be stricken and killed, but it was not. Because God is bigger than the action. God sees the heart. And when they came to condemn his disciples, and he said, no, you cannot condemn them because Sabbath is not made for man to worship it. Sabbath is rather made for man to serve man. So what is the attitude? Where is your heart? So these people, they cannot be condemned. Then they came to Jesus again and said, okay, but you are walking on Sabbath and you are doing healing and making. He said, no, it's not a sin. But even though the action, even though there is something there in the Old Testament talking about the Sabbath, the law is there for sure, but Jesus violated it and it's not counted as a sin. Now, let me tell you another one. If I come into the auditorium right now and I take a whip, a cane, and I begin to whip all of you because you are doing something wrong in church, it doesn't matter. Maybe you are sleeping or you are doing sex or anything, and I begin to whip you and cast you out of there. Don't you think that the police will think I've done wrong? The police, you people will take me to court, sir. You see, Jesus did that. That's what Jesus did. He threw away all the people who were selling in the car and even was whipping them. Yet, in God's eyes, he had not committed a sin. Because he said Jesus was the only one who had never committed a sin. Why? The action was there, but it's not recorded as a sin. Why? Because he was doing it, his action was not taking him away from God. Are you getting it? His action was he was actually doing it as a manifestation of love for God. And he was doing it so that these people would discover God's love as well. So everything is, so we shouldn't be simplistic about, who misses heaven. It's not so easy. But it's God, the old teaching in the Beatitudes is about your heart. Make sure that your heart is in right relationship with the Father. The way to determine is this. Where is your heart pursuing? What is your heart pursuing? Are you going after? If you are going after God, if you are going after loving God, loving people, in the process, things will happen. You will take wrong steps. You will take wrong actions. Sometimes you will fall. Sometimes you will stand. Sometimes you will make mistakes. But your heart should be pursuing hard after God. That's what Philippians was saying when he says, he that is perfect should think like this, forgetting about the things that are in the past and pursuing to the high calling of God. If you can find Philippians chapter 3, I think verse 11 to 8. So perfection in this kingdom, maturity he said they that mature should think like that. How should we think? Pursuit, forgetting the things that are in the past, and pursuing. You're pursuing after God, after his love. To get close to him is what determines. But anything that takes you away from his love, from his heart, is a sin. It could be your father, it could be your mother. That is why it says, any one of you that does not take his cross and follow me. Any one of you that cannot hate his father and his mother and deny himself cannot be my disciple. You see, in God's eyes, you're not. It's like I mean, in our eyes, like you are not doing anything wrong. How can I? This is my father, it's my mother, it's my sister that I love them. But if you love them more than you love God, you're actually sinning. And that sin is even as bad or maybe worse than the sexual sin. And that sin can take you to hell because you have an idol in your heart. So that's why he says if you cannot deny anything, you must not be attached to anything. If you cannot, either it is sin, or it is your wife, or it is your children, or it is your parents, if you cannot detach yourself easily, then you are living in sin. Your biggest attachment in life, your biggest love in life should be him. It shouldn't be people, it shouldn't be your job, it shouldn't be your occupation, it shouldn't be your family, him. That is the greatest sin. What are you attached to? Or what is your heart driving to? This is the difference between the New Testament and the Old Testament. The Old Testament is very simple. You do this, it's action that is sin. In New Testament, it is relationship. Are you building relationship that is drawing you closer to God? Or that is putting you apart from it? Anything that is putting you apart from God, it could be sin. It could be any kind of sin. It could also be wrong relationship, or wrong attachment. Anything that is separating you from the love of God. Anything that's separating you or driving you away from him is what is sin in the New Testament. It's much more complicated than you thought. Eh? I need a whole day, maybe a whole week to talk about this topic. But it's not as easy. It's relationship. That's what Jesus was talking about when he said, oh, you foolish Galatians. Galatians, don't let people tell you because you observe Saturday, or because you didn't observe the Saturday, because he's a woman, or you didn't treat as there's not a woman or mine. No. You started in the spirit. You started in grace. Don't let anybody take you back to observation of the laws, rules, or this. This is the New Testament. It's relationship that matters. It is not what you do. Oh, can we eat? Then he told the Romans the same thing. Oh, can we eat this meat that is offered to the idol worshiper? He said to some people, they will eat it. And it will not be sin because their conscience has not condemned them. Because that's not breaking their relationship with the Father. But some people will eat it, but it will be a sin because there are some other people who are right there who are thinking it's a sin to eat, and you are eating in their presence and they are getting offended. So that is a sin because there are other people that think it's breaking their relationship with God or their love with God. So that's a sin. So one and the same action, for some is a sin and some is not. You understand? So this is the New Testament. Actions could be different, but it is your heart that God looks at.